are the Yard People? The Yard People are a group of African Americans who came together in Buffalo, New York in the 40s and 50s. They are people who survived urban renewal, who resisted the flight to the suburbs, and who built, maintained, and impacted their communities for over 50 years.
The Yard People started in this yard and the yard next door. We're the ones that tore down the fences and started having the picnics and inviting people to come. So it pretty much started between these two yards. So I guess King and Tommy were just talking about it, and they just decided that they were going to just take the fence down.
At one time, we could go from Mamie's house all the way down to King's house in the back. If we wanted to carry our pots and pans, for wherever we were going to have our food, you didn't have to go down the front taking your pots and pans. We just take them down here, and we can get through.
I think it was our daughter that first named us the Yard People.
Yeah.
So here are those Yard People again.
I think Burnett is the one that came up with the preprandial name. And preprandial means before dinner. So usually King's watch rings at 5 o'clock. So I'm on the telephone to the Petersons saying, it's preprandial time, or one day they fix, one day I fix. Then Ruby will come home from work and we'll say, Ruby, come on over.
When I come home, they ask, you want a drink? And I got known by the name of Why Not?
She'll say, why not? So then she comes over and has prandials.
We all decided to fix up the garages. I think I started. I got some discontinued wallpaper books, and I tore out all these pages and tacked them up in between these rafters or whatever you call them.
Come Friday night, we let our hair down, we'd come over here and we'd party. Because that's what we needed to do. That's right, to get our perspective so we can get over to Monday.
We have been here sometime wearing winter coats on the 30th of May.
That's right.
The wind has been blowing. We've been here in thunderstorms. We just roll the garage door down. We've been here in windstorms.
That's right.
Never postponed, never.
We met and got very close after the couples group, the Les Tres. We all had children then, so the women would get together around 8 o'clock. We would play bridge, and the men would come about 9:30 or 10, and they would play poker. Then we would stop around 11 o'clock and party. And we would party until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Now we go at 6, and we have cocktails, and we eat around 7, and we play cards, and we're through around 10 or 11.
Parties were our thing. We were a partying people. We got our red rug. We invited all the people to come and let's have a red rug party.
We got to the point when some of them moved to the suburbs, we used to charter a bus. And after the cocktail party, we'd had the bus take us out to the suburbs so that nobody would have to drive after they partied.
This one time we pulled up to the very area I'm now living. Well, we had our cocktails. When we got off, we were singing carols at the top of our voices.
We share ideas and argue principles and things like that. I think that's all healthy stuff.
Each person would talk about what was going on in her own life.
At our little get-togethers, we had those of us in education who talked education, the politicians, we all talked politics. We tried to run everything,
Everyone has something to offer, and if you enjoy what they have to offer, or you find it interesting, you respond to it.
It was an extended family. I had no brothers that I could run to, but I had, in terms of this family group, there were always guys that you could sit down and talk with. I'm not going to say we talked over home personal problems, but we had a lot to talk about to get things off your chest as far as the community was concerned, as far as politics was concerned, as far as sports was concerned.
Politics, religion, children.
These things are necessary.
We just talk all the time.
It's
it's not an exclusive thing. I don't like exclusiveness because exclusiveness soon wears out.
It's very friendly, warm. People really care for each other. We look out for each other. The children who have grown up here feel very welcome.
We adopted each other's children. We became aunts and uncles. We became grandmothers and grandfathers according to the age of the children. And we were and have been and still are one family. My mother Knight was our matriarch, and we all bowed to her. We all honored and respected her. And Mother Knight could sit and play cards with us, beat us, win our money, and she was just a complete part of it. A very lovely thing. Truly, truly, truly lovely. So I'm sure Tommy Hall, who originated the idea, I'm sure he looks down on it and smiles.
Regardless of any of the yard people you talk to who have had responsible positions, they were better in many instances, if not all, better than their white counterparts, or they wouldn't have had the job. When I was in graduate school and my placement was at a veterans hospital, I had this patient who had aphasia, which is a loss of memory and so forth. But when he looked at me and my black face, immediately he thought of another black person. And that black person was Flash Hardiman. And what he said, he couldn't remember the present or anything like that, but what he said, if it hadn't been for Winton Hardiman, he wouldn't have been where he was. Winton taught him then, as it was then and is today. He became Winton's supervisor.
I was denied the opportunity to run for councilman of the city at large, and was told at that point in time that because of the dark complexion, the citizens in Buffalo, the white citizens, would not be voting for me. It turned out that there was a member of the council who was Cora Maloney, very fair complexion. The nomination was given to Cora at our insistence.
Around the 60s we started, our children went to college, and they began to come home. Well, our daughter Joy came home, and she had this afro. My friends began to talk about my daughter. My daughter was the oldest in the yard people, and they began to look down on poor Joy. At that time, my friends and my husband were trying to figure out how I could get Joy to straighten her hair, put on shoes, and become the haughty-taughty little girl that she had been raised, with her little coats with fur collars and her pinafore dresses and all this sort of thing. So I finally decided, if you can't fight it, join it. So I then decided, and I had an afro. Well, my friends almost died because there I was, supposed to be what people might call at that time society, and I had the afro. But I had to support my daughter because I felt at that time there was nothing else I could do, if that's what she wanted to do. And then at that time I had a minister that was really wonderful to me. And when I talked to him, he said to me, "You created that child to think for herself. Now, don't go back on her." And that's when I started wearing the afro. After that, my friends about 2 or 3 years later, my friends' children went to college. And they came back with the afro and power to the people. And my friends started wearing afro, and some of them are still wearing afros.
Reverend Mason, he talked to me and he said, listen, we need more black. Please, well, I was making pretty good money at Chevrolet and I didn't want to go either, but he kept me to go, and so I went and I took the examination and we passed, and then I was called immediately and I got a job in 1951. I became a policeman. You're black, and they let you know that you were still black. And they would try to do everything they could to keep us from getting this exam. Then after we got to be a policeman, you never got a chance to, we weren't allowed to ride the car. We walked.
I have been the national vice president of the Red Cross Convention. I have been the secretary of the National Red Cross Convention. Nonetheless, some people who moved into the office started saying they were sick of kikes and niggers. They tried to kill my spirit, but they could not kill what was in me. Oftentimes I'd be the only black person in the meeting and I'd be chairing it. And one day I wear a lot of jewelry, and as you see, I use my hands a lot to talk. So my big ring hit the table, and all the white people stopped talking. I said, Black power. What you say, and uneasy, a little laughter from them and so forth, not knowing how to deal with that. But they have to recognize and realize that we know who we are, and we know we have something to give, and it's still true. We handle adversity with grace, and this is from our forefathers and foremothers who gave us the strength to carry on.
Love is the deep inner feeling. Don't worry about what nobody's saying, what is going on. It's what you feel within, and what you are able to express in whatever way that you can with the person that you are in love with. But it's I hate to trivialize it, but I feel it is trivialized when I say love, because that's trivia. That's just fun stuff. But when you're very serious about whether it's a relationship, a marriage, a friendship, that is love.
If my husband went over and said, well, I'm going over to see Velma, I would never get upset about it. Or if Flash would bring me home, your mother would never get upset. Where in some communities that I have dealt with, that would be a real issue. Mm-hmm. And I think we felt pretty secure.
We've been married 59 years.
We just celebrated our 49th, and we're looking forward to celebrating our 50th.
For our 50th anniversary, we did a 2-week cruise on the Caribbean. We renewed our vows.
What's the secret?
Say yes, dear.
Gotta love one another to begin with. And then when you love one another, you can ignore what you call the faults, and you can make it.
Faith in God, deep religious faith, activity in our churches.
And it's glue that holds us together. I guess it's love for one another.
Tommy died, her husband, and those boys came back. In her house, there's a chair when you come in, and those boys came in. She was sitting in that chair, and those boys got down and kneeled around their mothers. It's just something about it, about us, that is just so beautiful and such love.
Tommy's been dead for 20 years. King has been mowing Fran's lawn, doing the snow, trimming her hedges, all the outside work he's continued to do for 20 years since Tommy passed. And sometimes in snow, he goes all the way down to Mamie's house and with the snow plow and plows her out.
We have an old motto we say among ourselves: we're not here to see through each other. We're here to see each other through.
Seniors do date. Absolutely. And they not only date, they get into involved relationships. One among us, was so in love. I mean, several of us, but one.
I started out in life.
I don't care, honey. You got so in love. She wanted to be engaged.
But I'm gonna know.
So. She got engaged. Now she has her ring. She's had it for 8 years. Glover and Garnett dated for a long time.
A wonderful relationship with Glover, and I still miss him very much.
Isn't that something? Thelma's sitting over there acting like
she ain't never been in love.
Oh yeah, you in love.
Thelma fell in love.
The yard people and that little core of friends is the underpinnings really of my life. I think I can depend on them to do anything. I can say anything to them. I can get from them their strengths. I can get strength from them. I can give strength to them.
You can call any one of the group and say, I have a problem, and they're there. We're very close, even though you don't see each other every day. They're there to help you.
It's something that has been so wonderful. I can go to bed at night knowing that if I have a stroke and I'm in that bed by myself, all I got to do is try to hit the memory and hit Mamie's name, or hit that memory and hit Garnett's name and say, I need help. And I can promise you, in 10 minutes, somebody's there to help me.
I would like to say they're a great bunch of people. And if I wasn't around them, I'd miss them.
I'm a professor of architecture and urban planning at State University of New York at Buffalo. And the subspecialty field that I call my own, the place that I do most of my research and publishing, is in housing for low-income populations. And I would never have guessed that's what I would have ended up in, but clearly the influence of my father's life and him being a public housing manager, I mean, the imprints are there. I also spend an enormous amount of my time doing public service and volunteer work, which is the other set of footprints. And if you think about MAMA and PTA and Red Cross and all of that kind of stuff, those footprints are there too.
Both my grandparents and my aunt have enjoyed long careers in public service, so I think that was a part of my genes, a commitment to community and investing in community. We both decided to stay in our community, which has a lot of history here in Hamlin Park, and so instead of moving to suburbs, which we could have, made a decision to stay and invest in our own neighborhood. And then I think probably lastly is a commitment to family and friends, and making it a part of yourselves to help others. Both of my grandparents have done that, and so being a husband, hope to be a father, being a community leader, have all been a part of what I've obtained from them.
I know for me, always was very cognizant of making sure that I dressed appropriately, because I think the women set the standards. If you take a look at any one of them, the hats, the summer sandals, and always looking very, very fashion conscious. And I think that that's so important for young people to know what the appropriate thing to do is when you're going to, even if it's just a barbecue.
You had to have a certain amount of discipline. And with that discipline came a no negative attitude posture. And every house that you went in here on this street is a house of love and of positiveness.
Many of them have had outstanding careers, but it hasn't stopped there. They've continued to be part of the community and the fabric of the life in many communities, and that has, I think, kept them young beyond their years, and people that you want to be around and want to party with and have good times. And you can really see that people who relish life and take each day and embrace it are people that just have an enthusiasm. When you did well, they were going to celebrate that. And that's part of, I think, that whole community of the yard people, celebrating the achievements and acknowledging those achievements.
It seems like everybody's your grandpa, everybody's your mother, everybody's your father, everybody's your grandmother, or something like that, because they treat you like they would do anything at any time that you wanted them to do it. I don't know, it's just love, I guess.
Since this is your 19th birthday and you come to visit Uncle Leland, I want you first to read to me that beautiful poem that you sent to me when you were 9 years old, and I keep it on my wall.
I agonized over these 3 lines, these 3 long lines. And I think it took me a couple of days to write, because when you're writing for someone who's special, you want to make sure everything is perfect. I recall my mom harassing me on a daily basis because I would just get so frustrated because I couldn't think of what I wanted to say. And when I finally did, it came out very nice for a 9-year-old.
I loved it.
And I'm glad you did. And that was what that's what I was aiming for. So I will read this piece that I wrote when I was 9. Keyword 9. 10 years ago. Okay. To Uncle Leland, a survivor of the war. By the light of the fire, many men died. By the light of the fire, very few survived. You may not be the last, but you are one of the first to survive the burning fires of life. Soma Hardiman, age 9.
Oh, don't you? That is beautiful.